Good evening. I'd like to call the regular Planning Commission meeting of April 19th, 2022 to order and ask Planning Commission Clerk Tillison, please call the roll.
Good evening, Planning Commissioners. Vice Chair Klein.
Present.
Commissioner Fortney.
Here.
Commissioner Vargas. Commissioner Lightfoot.
Here.
Commissioner Labonte. Commissioner Rudin. Here. Commissioner Wilkerson.
Present.
Vice Chair, we have a quorum.
Excellent, thank you. We will now present the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Second time's the charm for that. I don't know if anyone caught my first time chairing a meeting. I had to, well, anyway. You recovered well. I recovered, and I spent all night after that just kicking myself, but like I got through it. Yeah, I mean, please do not. Anyway, staff, are there communications for this evening's meeting?
Thank you, Vice Chair Klein. There is one item of correspondence from staff associated with the zoning map amendments, and Senior Planner Enolt will address that at that time.
Good. I believe we all have reviewed the agenda. Do I have a motion? Motion so moved. Is there a second? Second. Okay. So we'll do the vote, right? Do I call?
Yes, you can just ask all those in favor.
Okay. All in favor, please vote yes or no.
I believe this is just for the agenda, approval of the agenda.
And the motion was made by Commissioner Courtney. Okay, I didn't know. And we had a second. Wilkerson? I assume it passed.
Yeah, so you can ask for all those in favor. Oh.
Excuse me. Yes, we have a 5-0.
Wonderful. So we'll now turn to business from the floor, and this is the time to address the commission with issues that are not on the agenda, that are within the commission's subject matter jurisdiction. Maximum 3 minutes per speaker or group. Is there any business from the floor? Okay, we'll close business from the floor. We will now turn to the consent calendar. So we have two items on the consent calendar, the minutes of the February 28th, 2022 meeting and the meeting calendar for the remainder of the year. Given that only 3 commissioners were part of the commission and attended the special meeting in February, I suggest that we take each consent calendar item separately. Before we do that, does anyone from the commission or the public wish to pull either item from consent for discussion? Okay. Do I have a motion and a second to approve item A of the consent calendar? Motion so moved. Commissioner Courtney, is there a second? Commissioner Lightfoot? So this is for approval of consent item A. Right. All in favor, please vote yes.
The approval of minutes passes
Just barely, I'm sure.
3-2.
Okay, thank you. We'll now turn to item B. Do we have a motion? Is there a second? Commissioner Courtney second, and Rudine made the motion. All in favor, please vote yes.
And we have approval.
Thank you. So we'll now turn to public hearing. This is item number 7. We have one item scheduled for public hearing this evening. After I introduce the item, our staff team will make a brief presentation to the commission, and I will see if commissioners have questions of staff. I will then open the public hearing, and members of the public will be allowed to speak for up to 3 minutes each. We will then close the public hearing and bring the discussion back to the commission. So the item that we have for public hearing is the citywide zoning map amendments. Senior Planner Albert Enolt will present this item. Enolt. Enolt?
That's just fine.
Okay. Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners, and let me be the latest to welcome you to our first in-person meeting and your first public hearing. This item before you tonight is the citywide zoning map amendments project. And what this request is, it's to amend the City of Vacaville zoning map so that we were ensuring consistency with 3 regulatory documents. The first being the general plan, the second being the land use and development code update, which was recently approved this year, and the downtown specific plan. Here's some background of how we got to this location. So in August of 2015, the City Council adopted a comprehensive update to the city's general plan, and they also certified an environmental impact report. That action included various policies that created a domino effect of updating other regulatory documents that the city has. In November of 2018, the city started one of those policies, which was to update or to do a comprehensive update to the city's land use and development code. In January of 2020, there was also a secondary policy that's similar to this one that required a comprehensive update to the city's zoning map. And that was more of a reflection that needed to occur because the city's general plan changed, and so we had to make sure that our zoning map was consistent with that new general plan. During that process, we also identified a number of errors on the city's general plan map, mainly related to arbitrary general plan designations that had been applied to land uses that weren't really there, or that should have been something different. And so in January of 2020, City Council adopted that comprehensive update to the city's zoning map, but also those other errors that we corrected in the general plan. Another secondary policy that was included in the general plan was to create a downtown specific plan. And so in January, after many long months of working on a regulatory document and public outreach, City Council updated a downtown specific plan. They adopted it. And then in February 2022, this year, a land use and development code, a comprehensive update to the city's land use and development code was adopted by City Council. Again, that's another one of those secondary policies that was adopted in the general plan that required staff to update its municipal code to be consistent with the city's general plan. And so that's where we are today, is that we've got these updates that have occurred with the city's downtown specific plan and with the land use and development code. And so we need to update our zoning map to reflect those 2 recently adopted regulatory documents so that way they're consistent with the city's general plan. And this update can be broken up into 3 different areas. There are major changes which are affecting 442 properties. And this is mainly to make sure that those properties in the zoning is consistent with the general plan designations that are shown today. There are a number of changes that occurred. For instance, the service commercial zoning district was eliminated. The highway commercial CH zoning district was created to be consistent with the general plan. And then we also created a parks and recreation zoning district with the land use and development code update. Another major change that occurred was the elimination of policy plans and then the subsequent application of our city's zoning districts for those properties. The policy plans were secondary regulatory documents that controlled land uses, applied other secondary standards for properties within our industrial parks or business parks. And the main purpose behind those documents were to help streamline development within those areas, for instance, industrial buildings for manufacturing or warehousing and distribution. So those policy plans were eliminated and codified within the code, so now those areas within those industrial parks can refer to the code for development standards and for applicable land uses. The second change can be grouped up into minor changes, and there are 183 properties in this grouping. And these are mainly because we changed the names of zoning districts. For instance, there's a community facility zoning district that was in the previous land use and development code. And we changed that to a public facility district. So what we're doing is updating those graphics to show, instead of CF, we're doing PF, and it's the same colors. And a lot of those community facilities that are now public facilities, you'll find are schools or detention basins. There's also a secondary minor change where we're trying to reflect on our maps for the public our specific plans. And specific plans are other secondary regulatory documents that have been adopted by City Council, and they control land uses and zoning and development for public improvements and parks and landscaping for our communities, for our Vanden Meadows area, for Roberts Ranch, Bright Landing, Farm at Alamo Creek, and North Village, also in Lower Lagoon Valley. And so what we wanted to do as part of this change was identify on our city's maps where those areas are, so that way when developers coming in to build houses, they can see that there's a specific plan that needs to be looked at for how they're going to be building. And then the third change is a downtown specific plan change. So that downtown specific plan that was adopted earlier this year changes zoning districts for 494 properties. And we're changing our zoning map to be consistent with that downtown specific plan. So we mentioned that there is a communication that was provided for the commission. After we published the staff report, we realized that we had failed to include a legend for the commission that explains what the abbreviations are on those maps. And these are mainly related to the major and minor zoning changes, because on the other maps that you receive for the policy plan and for the downtown specific plan, on there are legends that explain what the colors are and what the abbreviations are. So these are really what those changes depict, what the abbreviations mention. You'll see the old zoning designations on the left-hand side and the new zoning designations on the right-hand side. Most notably, you'll see that the highway commercial designation was created, and then the downtown commercial district was eliminated because we've got a bunch of other new designations within the downtown specific plan. We've noted that it's been changed to match the downtown specific plan. You'll also see within the next section for business industrial that the service commercial designation was eliminated, and you'll find a lot of the same uses within the industrial service designation, and that those properties that were previously service commercial are now designated as industrial service. And then there were some other changes. I noted previously that there's that community facility district, and now it's being changed to the public facility. And then there was also a recreation commercial district. Some of those, there were 2 properties within the city. Those are now lumped in with the Parks and Recreation District, which is a brand new district that was created to reflect where our parks are. Our parks used to be within that community facility district. So that land use and development code that was updated earlier this year separated those 2, so that way we've got parks in one district and then our community facilities in a different district. So this is a map that was included for the commission as part of your staff report. And this depicts graphically where all those changes are occurring. You'll see the green areas are those parks that are going from community facility or recreation commercial to parks and recreation and those designations. You'll see some other areas that are blue, where we are saying that it's CF to PF, that's commercial, community facility to public facility. The reason why those particular changes are included on the major changes because they were located in policy plans. And we wanted to depict that the elimination of that policy plan is a major change, and so that's why you'll see that on this map. On our minor changes, you'll see everything is blue because we're changing that community facility to public facilities. On this other map, this depicts what we're intending to display for the public on these maps, outlining the specific plans. And the last change that's part of the staff report and part of the action tonight is the downtown specific plan changes, and these graphics show what they'll be changing to. You'll see the downtown commercial is now going to be downtown core area. Your general commercial is now going to be downtown general commercial. And then your CF that used to be Andrew Parks designation is now going to be downtown Parks and Rec district. So the designations that you'll see on the right-hand side of your screen for the proposed are consistent with the recently adopted downtown specific plan. So the project before it got to the commission here, the original project that was for the Land Use and Development Code update did require consistency review with Solano Airport Land Use Commission. There are 2 airports within our region that need to be informed when there are major changes that are occurring to our general plan or our zoning regulations, and that's the Nut Tree Airport and also the Travis Air Force Base. And so whenever there are changes like those that could affect operations for either of those airports, we have to refer those changes over to Solano Airport Land Use Commission so that they can look at it and compare those changes to their regulatory documents to make sure that we're being consistent. So we did that for the Land Use and Development Code update, and that occurred on May 13th, 2021, where we went to the commission, they held a hearing, and they determined that the changes in the municipal code that occurred would be consistent with their airport plans, but there were some conditions that were placed on that approval. And the first was to apply the Mead and Hunt recommendations, which that's a consultant group that worked with the city. Those recommendations have been applied. There was also a requirement to apply the airport environmental overlay district, which we have that on our maps. Currently, right now, if you go onto the city's website, you'll see on our general plan maps that are interactive and our zoning map that are interactive, that we have districts that outline where the important areas are around the Nut Tree Airport. And the reason why we have those on our maps is because they're intended to inform future development that could occur around those airports, that there are restrictions. For instance, if you're located on a property that's near the runway, you wouldn't be allowed to put single-family homes there, mainly make sure that if there was some type of incident at the airport, that you're not putting people at risk and their homes at risk. So those districts are currently displayed. And then there was one last condition that once everything's done, we return a final version to the commission for review prior to adoption. And we did that just this past week, or just this past month. We brought these maps to the Airport Land Use Commission and asked for them to take a look at them, make sure that we're meeting our obligation as those conditions say. And that presentation was made, and the Airport Land Use Commission acknowledged that we were meeting our condition. So in conclusion for the commission tonight, staff has found that these changes are being consistent with the findings that are required for a zoning map amendment, that it would be consistent with the general plan environmental impact report and the general plan policies that are required for subsequent actions. Would also comply with this recently adopted Land Use and Development Code, which is our zoning ordinance. It's also consistent with the downtown specific plan, and it's consistent with the airport land use plan, those area of influences. So with that, staff has a recommendation for the Planning Commission. It's that the commission would recommend that City Council would reaffirm the original general plan EIR and then that supplemental EIR that occurred in 2021. And that the commission would recommend to City Council that they amend the municipal code by changing these zoning districts as depicted by attachments 1 through 4. That is it for my presentation, and we're available to answer any questions.
Gotcha. Okay, quick clarification. Can you go back to the downtown specific plan slide, Albert, please? We have a strip over there downtown. I'm assuming we've got open space. Can you give me clarification on that green strip right there? Yes,
That is the Creekway.
it is the creek. Okay.
Mhm.
And then I let Commissioner or Director Morris know earlier, on the key, can we get the definition of plan development, PD? You will see that we have general commercial PD throughout the maps, on the maps, but there's no key for PD. Plan development,
Yeah, plan development is it's a secondary type of abbreviation that's included for those projects that have approved plan developments. And the
Yeah.
purpose of identifying that on the maps is because There are exceptions to development standards that are normally approved with those projects that apply different standards. And so under normal circumstances, you might find that buildings don't meet setbacks or that there might be some additional density that was allowed. And the whole intent is to inform the public that here's an approval, there's a plan development. When you're looking at making any changes to that site, contact the city and staff and see that you're getting them latest and greatest information about that.
Perfect. Can we get that included into the key? If the general public's looking at it, they understand what PD is as relation to the map.
Correct, yes, that is part of our comprehensive update.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Under public outreach, I was curious if you guys received any responses, that you mailed 277 notices. Did anybody respond?
We did get a couple of emails. They were from realtors that own properties within these areas that are going to be changing, and they were asking primarily whether or not the existing land uses that are occurring at the sites would be changing to where they wouldn't be allowed. Some of them were in this downtown specific plan. For instance, there was an inquiry about whether or not offices would be allowed within certain areas, and we were able to confirm it's still going to be allowed within those areas. And then there were some other properties there were service commercial districts that were previously within the zoning district, and they were changing to industrial service. And people who own properties within theirs were wanting to know if the same uses that are within that service commercial are identified in the industrial service. And it's a pretty much one-for-one change where you're seeing a lot of the same uses.
Great, thank you.
Planning Commission recommend that the City Council reaffirm the 2015 General Plan and Energy Conservation Action Strategy Final Environmental Impact Report and the 2021 Final Supplemental EIR with the citywide zoning map amendments, and recommend the City Council amend the municipal code by changing zoning designations for various properties throughout the city of Vacaville. Do we have a motion? Is there a second? All right, so we'll now open up the discussion.
Sorry, Mr. Vice Chair, I was just going to ask, when they do vote, if you could have them vote both orally and electronically, because the electronic vote is not showing up for the public to see.
Okay.
So sorry, I didn't mean to cut off the discussion.
No, moving a little fast there. But I just wanted to get the motion out there and open up if there's discussion before we vote. Okay, please, do you want to do a roll call? Would that work? And we can, okay.
Commissioner Fortney,
Yes.
Commissioner Lightfoot, Commissioner Rudine, Commissioner Wilkerson,
Yes.
Vice Chair Klein.
Yes. So I take it that's approved? Okay. Okay. Thank you.
The Planning Commission's recommendation will be forwarded to City Council at most likely the second meeting in May.
Thank you, Albert. Nice job. I know that turned into a more complex project than we anticipated, so you're already be commended for diligence there. So we will now turn to, let's see. Now is the time in our agenda we will go into Director Morris's report.
Starting off with 8A, the Planning Commissioner Training. I'm really happy to be here with all of you this evening, and seeing you all in person here in Vacaville is wonderful. As outlined in the staff report, there are a variety of training materials for planning commissioners. And as I was preparing this item to bring to you this evening, I really did find the newly updated ILG handbook to be helpful, but printing it would have been burdensome because it's clearly meant to be an online workbook. So I'm hoping that you too enjoyed that resource. It was announced at the training that some of us went to that it had just been updated, so I thought the timing was just spot on. Also, as outlined in my report, there's a lot of different materials, so I tried to give you all the things that I think are the most relevant or germane to the work that you're doing. What I'm hoping to do with this evening's item is to hear from you a little bit individually, and I can follow up with the two that aren't here this evening, about what topics you would find most helpful for Planning Commission training, either as a newer Planning Commissioner, kind of wanting to get nuts and bolts, even as a continuing Planning Commissioner, topics of interest. And then I have to tell you that there isn't an option at next month's meeting. You will be trained on the Brown Act and conflict of interest law. So those are mandatory things that our Assistant City Attorney, Andrea Borba, will be walking you through next month. So just to spur your thoughts, because I'm interested in your thoughts, I made a short list of ideas of things that you might want to be trained on. And I'll go through those somewhat slowly, and then I'm open to any individual feedback, other ideas, and then at some point with the vice chair's help, trying to figure out what would be the things that are most timely for you in the next couple months. So we could do a training about land use planning, kind of a general overview, talking about like what general plans are, what zoning is, and just really it's the nuts and bolts land use planning training. As I mentioned, we will be training you on the Brown Act and conflict of interest laws. We have been planning on bringing and can at any time bring a training on the California Environmental Quality Act. It's pretty complicated. We won't put you through planner school for CEQA, but we could definitely bring some outside help to get everyone really immersed in it. There's another topic I brainstormed, housing laws. I think I've talked about that with some of you, that it's complicated. There's a lot of them, and clearly they very much influence what we do here at the City of Vacaville. Few more. These are I think they're getting more fun as I went along, although maybe not. Like there's a topic of community engagement best practices, and that was highlighted in some of the materials I sent to you, and we could train you on what we currently do and what works well, and maybe share with you what happens other places too. Community design, it was I thought it was nicely done. I think it was in the ILG materials, but now I'm not remembering. That's a whole topic, and there's definitely stuff to go through talking about community design and what are the factors. And then the last three I brainstormed, we'd be happy to train you on any of our existing planning documents, like the Energy and Conservation Action Strategy, General Plan, kind of like those one-off topics. One of my new ones is Vacaville as viewed through data. We've been getting a lot of data about Vacaville as a city, and this is land use and planning and population and demographic stuff. That would not be a hard training for us to put together, and I think it would be interesting, but depends on your perspective. And then lastly, we could do a virtual or actual tour of completed projects. That's not necessarily as much of a training, but I found in the past when I've done this exercise that a planning commission and staff taking that time to look back at what has been built and to talk about it. It's sensitive sometimes because not everyone likes what's been built, but actually it helps kind of tune up, okay, what are we looking for and what's the best we can get for our community. So that's my brainstorm. I would like to stop talking and we have a dialogue, but I'd love to have the vice chair facilitate, anyone's input, and then I'll keep adding to the list.
Yeah, I mean, those really did get fun as you went along. It's just like spring break in Vacaville, Planning Commission. So thank you for that, Aaron. And I think that, that's a terrific list to start with. And we spoke a little bit earlier about some ideas I had, but I'd love to open it up just if we want to just run through everyone, starting with Commissioner Portney.
Thank you, Director. We talked about a virtual tour of completed projects. What's the capacity? When I first came on years ago, we actually took 2 vans with staff and did an actual physical tour through the business park, possibly through Lagoon Valley. Would that be, I think it would be hugely beneficial to some of the new commissioners as well as new residents in Vacaville if we could physically do that at two buses or 2 vans if that's capable.
I've noted that. I like the actual tour way better than the virtual, but we have to notice it as a public meeting, advertise a route, invite members of the public to join us. So there's a little bit more complexity, but I've noted that as an interest, and I will look into that because I agree it's a pretty positive experience to actually go out
And we may
there.
actually see
Yeah.
quite a few of those areas actually before us this year, so maybe, hopefully.
Thank you very much. So, if I had to pick one or two or three, a very brief overview of what the nuts and bolts of CEQA are really helpful to somebody who's not seen it before. And we don't need to get too deep into it, but basically the main outline of what CEQA is all about, when I first heard it, was a weight lifted off my shoulders about, how to go about really even viewing any of those. So, that'd be number one for anybody who hasn't seen that. I think community design, that'd be really interesting, and see what we're gonna be looking at or trying to accomplish. I think downtown specific plan is a great document about what community design could be, but more on that would be great. And I'm in for a tour as well.
My turn. So you'll find my interest, it really kind of focuses in on housing, and I don't know why, but it is. And so with the housing element update, and if this is like a study session type where the public's invited, I really think housing laws and kind of mixing with land use planning, kind of both of those, I think that would be really, really helpful. So the public understands why, well, first off, the city doesn't build housing, the city zones land, and how that whole process works, because the city usually gets blamed for, well, why are they building this? Why are they doing that? There's a lot more to it. And so especially with, like I said, the housing element being redone right now for the general plan, I'd be inclined to kind of, focus on anything to do with housing so the public has an understanding of it. And also, like Commissioner Lightfoot said, kind of a overview of CEQA, not get into the weeds of it, but just also, again, understanding that's another process of it. And and the land use planning, just, I mean, those are my personal interests. Design sounds really cool too, but if we had to narrow it down just to a couple of them, just kind of how a city's planned out. There is actual thought put into it. It's not just colors on a map. So that's my 2 cents.
Yes, thank you. If we had to narrow three, I agree with Commissioner Lightfoot and Commissioner Rudin. A very, very, very quick CEQA. I went to the Planning Commission training and read the overview of what it was, and I was like, no, I can't. I'm not ready for that. But just something quick that just like bullet points and makes it easier for someone to understand. Community design. I think that is a big one that people want to know why things are put where they are. And Vacaville as viewed through data. Because right now, over the last 2 years, there's been a change in demographic in Vacaville. So a lot of people have questions and thoughts of, what is this, what is all this gonna mean, and how does we collect all this information? And then what is the Planning Commission and City Council and Parks and Rec, how do they take this information and data and then best try and serve the people back home? So those would be my three.
Did anyone else want to add anything else? Yeah, so I think these are all really great ideas. Yes, I think we've not heard the last of CEQA. There's going to be some trainings on that. We have to obviously do the lawyer training, with the how not to break rules on open meetings. And those trainings don't end either. It's like an ongoing regimen. But the way I thought it'd be a neat idea to have to look at the calendar and then have a focus and an idea of when we can have study sessions for things throughout the year, so that we have an ongoing interaction with some of these topics, whether be it CEQA, Vacaville through the numbers. I thought that that if we keep the conversation going around environmental justice, for instance, we would want to do a study session on that. And we'd also want to have opportunities to interact with the city council more on that topic. And I'm not sure how that lines up under. A particular interest that I have that might tie up with Vacaville through the numbers or through the data would be understanding the process in RIT in terms of how projects are built in Vacaville. So, and what I mean by that is, if you could take us through the typical course of how a project might be built, but then I know that there are different ways as well that are less that or might be unique to Vacaville, such as the merit hearing process and being able to get projects approved through merit, and that's a form of zoning. I understand that touches on zoning, and I think it's actually fitting that we're visiting the zoning issue tonight, because I think that the commission should understand a little bit more about how that process works. Might be in a box for some of us. So to be able to see Vacaville through data, I don't know if we can tie those in together. Is that something that's related?
I've added the interest to the list, and I will give that some consideration.
Thank you. Okay. So the other thing on the agenda is the Housing Element Subcommittee. And I think the idea here was to receive the presentation and then select members for the subcommittee. I would suggest, since we're down 2 members tonight, that we table that to until May.
And excuse me, Vice Chair, because the past item was an item on the agenda, you need to open it up for public comment.
Okay.
Before you move on.
Thank you for catching me trying to break the rules. Okay, so I will open item B to public comment. And I'm seeing no, so we're going to close public comment.
Thank you.
Yes, please.
So in with what you were saying, the community engagement, Vacaville through the numbers, and how the process is, I think there's been talks about a community school or teaching of what the process is, and I've heard some council members talking about it, and if that ever comes up or is something that we can tie into this, a community outreach on the processes of what commission does, I think would be hugely beneficial. And if that's something in the works somewhere else, I'm fully supportive of it. And it kind of ties into that community engagement, Vacaville by the data, like you were saying. We can do a class on or a outreach on processes. It would be very beneficial to people that I know.
Yeah, I mean, if it's okay, I think can we revisit item A? Or is that appropriate? Okay, I didn't tie it up. Okay. So continuing item A, I think that the Commissioner Lightfoot brings up a good point about community outreach, and if you look at the thrust behind when we formed the Housing Element Subcommittee was because our standing rules allow for standing committees, and our standing rules also allow for members of the commission to be designated to, for instance, if we want to designate Commissioner Lightfoot to be our not our representative, but to attend like airport land use commission meetings. would that be proper under the standing rules?
I need to look at the
That's
rules.
a hypo.
I don't remember that one. You can have subcommittees, as we discussed when the Housing Element Subcommittee was set up. There's nothing in the rules about how they're established, how they function, what their purpose is. So that part is, yes, you can have subcommittees. But on the topic of assigning liaisons to different meetings of different bodies, we may need to get back to you on that.
Okay. Because one thing that I'm just hearing Commissioner Lightfoot, bring that up, I think that's sort of a community outreach type thing where if we have commissioners that are able to go to different meetings that are happening, like school board meeting, for instance, we have a school board, liaison or something. There are many other examples of standing ways or standing outreach opportunities. I like the idea of getting commissioners involved and out in the community and then bringing that information back to the commission as liaison. So maybe that's, I don't know if we would look at that as a planning commissioner training thing, but Commissioner Lightfoot's point about understanding how the commission work, I think, yeah, like that's just an active example that comes to mind.
I'll note that as an interest and then we can revisit that.
Okay. Before I close item A, was anyone else want to add to that? Commissioner Wilkerson? Oh, there's your name. Thank you for being patient.
I have a question. With the subcommittee through the planning commission, what would the scope be? Would they be looking into policy or what would the focus of that be?
We've been figuring that out a little bit ad hoc with the Housing Element Subcommittee, and we've only met once just due to various sort of disruptions in our housing element schedule and then the reappointment of the entire commission just at the right time. But the Housing Element Subcommittee is not making decisions on behalf of the Planning Commission. It isn't advising the Planning Commission. We're trying to use that group a little bit more like a think tank as we do a deeper dive into some of the data. There's some very data-rich documents that are part. So that subcommittee is, I'm focusing it and thinking of it as a group of people that's helping us really dissect the information that's supporting the housing element so that when we bring it forward as part of the formal presentations to Planning Commission of the housing element, we've had some folks who've been helping us make sure it's understandable, clear, and meaningful to the city. But if there were other subcommittees, some of it, as I explained in the past, have to do with staff capacity. Right now, we're very thin on staff, and so we can do the housing element subcommittee right now, and it will wrap up at some point. But each subcommittee may have will have its own specific focus.
And that's kind of my thought process, right? Like it may not just be housing, but if we have other ones, what capacity or what are we allowed to look into, or is it just, hey, go for it?
Thank you for that question, Commissioner Wilkerson. One of the things that's on the list for me and the Assistant City Attorney is to clarify and bring to Planning Commission and Council that the Planning Commission rules and regulations for business to clarify how the subcommittees work. Because I don't think there was an intention there can't be an intention to allow just all kinds of subcommittees doing all kinds of things because the council ultimately are the policymakers for the city. But the rules say there can be subcommittees, they say nothing else. So we'll be coming back to this commission with our take on what we think it should be, and we'll be looking for your feedback.
I want to be clear though, I am in favor of a subcommittee on housing. I just can see how this could turn in, the slippery slope down the line, and we're doing a subcommittee on whatever the case may be, and then we're taking up a lot of staff time, and which is limited. So just wanted to be mindful of that.
It was not an easy process forming that. That was not I would not call that a willy-nilly enterprise. It took about 6 months from the time that we had the idea to getting it at its first meeting. So we are judicious, and I think that the scope is within what, it has to be within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Planning Commission. And so mindful of staff resources, I would like to just make clear that we all respect the staff resources, and we definitely want to just support. We're mindful of our role on the commission, citizen leadership. I would add, though, that as commissioners, I think each of us needs to bring our seasoned experience to these roles. And if you have a particular expertise that you can bring to bear as we're discussing different subjects, I mean, I wish if any one of us had been to a airport land use commission meeting, I'd love to hear about like how those meetings go, and to maybe season some of the things that Albert was sharing with us earlier. It'd be great if we could get a liaison to that group specifically to know how that ties into the work we're doing. But that would be an example of something in our scope. Something out of our scope would be like the schools are not specifically within the scope of our purview. So I do want to clarify that. But before we close item A, was there any other, did anyone else wish to be heard on this? Okay, great. Okay, we'll now close item A and move into the Housing Element Subcommittee, item B.
Thank you, Vice Chair Klein. As you were sharing, staff is also recommending that we push this item to the next agenda. We had gone kind of back and forth about whether this was the evening that I was going to recommend that you appoint the new chair and vice chair, but because we have 5 of you, I think it's appropriate to wait till May to do that, and then my director's report, I'll announce that more formally. So if you're okay with it, I would like to just move this item to the May agenda, and then that will allow the chair to appoint 3 subcommittee members. I also want to note that we figured out a way to engage the subcommittee pretty much right away after they're appointed. We've got 2 meetings planned, and we've got topics assigned to both meetings. So it'll be a limited engagement, but we can talk about that more next month if the commission agrees to push the item to next month.
Thank you, Director Morris. Does the commission have, does anyone want to share their thoughts on Director Morris's report? Starting with okay, great. So we will move to item, we'll close the housing subcommittee discussion. We'll move to item 9, status report on development and major projects. Director Morris, please proceed with the status reports.
Thank you, Vice Chair Klein. I'm going to do the building division report and then hand it off to my planning team for the other reports. The building division, again, had a very busy month with 1,465 inspections. Keep in mind, I have 3 inspectors on a good day. They worked very hard to get all that done. Just a couple other things of note. The Raising Cane's building was finalized, and it's due to open on May 17th. It's a new chicken restaurant at 160 Nut Tree Parkway. A 300,000 square foot shell building at 1051 Aviator Drive was finalized. We don't have a tenant for that one yet, but that's a big building, and it is done. And then last couple things to note, 37 single family homes received their final last month. And the Preserve at Harbison, which is one of the projects we featured in some imagery at a housing update recently, 2 of their buildings have been finalized, and there's more to go, but that project is making excellent progress. So that's the building division report. I'm turning it over to Albert or Payman to take on the planning reports.
That would be me. Thank you,
Okay.
Director Morris. So for the commission, I've got the district maps because I'll be referencing how development's occurring for our current planning activities. Within your District 1, we received a number of administrative clearances. These are small staff level variance requests, mainly to reduce side yard or rear yard setbacks for the purpose of constructing accessory structures or swimming pools. We did receive a conditional use permit to establish a screen printing and embroidery business over at 897 Cotting Lane, and that one was approved. In District 2, going back to District 1, some of the activity that we've been reviewing for plan reviews involves the Midway Commerce Center, which is located over off of Eubanks and Midway Road. That's a very large project full of a number of industrial buildings, one of them being over 1 million square feet in size. And then also the Conco Warehouse project, we've been reviewing that within District 1. Over in District 2, we've been seeing some activity with housing developments, primarily in Roberts Ranch with the Wild Hawk subdivisions by KB Homes, and then the Carmelo subdivision by Taylor Morrison Homes. In District 3, we worked with other city departments on the review of the admin billing. That's over at the Corporation Yard at 1001 Allison Drive. And then we also reviewed some smaller low-level permits for pet supply stores in the Vacaville Commons. District 4, we moved to approve a staff level project. It's a Bella Vista storage building. It's an existing self-storage facility that was looking at filling in some of their space with another storage building. And then there was another administrative clearance that we worked with on getting that one approved. It was for a patio cover. In District 5, more notable projects, the Crossroads Christian Church is looking at modifying their master plan to put in a soccer field. And so we're working with them. They submitted their application to the city, and we're working with them through the process. It's a staff level project. A more notable project that happened in March was the approval of the Oak Grove Apartments. That was approved by City Council. That's that 60-unit apartment complex for affordable age-restricted senior housing. And that's at 475 West Monte Vista. In District 6, we received a new development application for Southtown, and it's their Phase 3 development, and we received new house plans from KB Homes. What they are proposing on having are 7 house plans with 3 elevations each, and they're proposing to develop on 167 lots. And that's in Southtown. That is just east of Magnolia Park, south of Redstone Parkway in that vacant field that's over there. And then also in District 6, we are continuing to see lots of development with Richmond American Homes and their Seasons at Vanden subdivision and the Vanden Meadows development. And also the Villages at Vanden subdivision, Meritage Homes is also building out in that area. Before I conclude my report, I wanted to bring to the attention of the commission our brand new planners. We have Sarah Nolan, who is our new assistant planner, and then Julissa Gonzalez Farias, who is our newest planning technician. And you will be seeing their faces more often as they will be presenting projects to the commission. So here's your introduction. Here, if you have any other questions on the current planning update.
Welcome to the team. Where are they from? You want to, I mean, we have a little bit extra time. No pressure. Come on down.
Idaho, but I was working here before I moved to Idaho at Solano Land Trust, so I am a little familiar with the area. Yeah.
Idaho to California as opposed to California.
Well, I was, yeah, I was here working in this area and like around Vacaville, mostly in the agricultural land. Then went to Idaho and then decided I don't like snow and came back here. So, yep. Yeah,
Welcome,
thank you.
and we hope you stick around.
Yeah.
Don't. These meetings are fun.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Julissa. I just passed my 9 months here with the city. It's been a really great experience. I've had wonderful supervisors. But I recently graduated from UC Davis in June, so I am a recent grad, and this has been my experience so far. And I currently live in West Sacramento. So that's where I'm from. Thank you.
Welcome, Julissa. Excellent hires.
So I'll give a very quick update on advanced planning. As a planning commission reviewed in city council, we submitted our annual general plan progress to the state. It was accepted by the deadline, which is good news for us because it allows us to continue to be eligible for grants and other funding types from the state. As some of the commissioners alluded to the housing element, there's a lot of stuff going on with the housing element, a lot of data requests, data preparation, plans and reports for us to review. So give good thoughts to Tyra Hayes as she tackles all of this. But that's really it on the housing element stuff. I just want to bring to your attention as well, I should have received an email or notice for the Green Tree EIR. It's a big milestone for us to get that published. So we published last Friday. There should be information on the city's website, a couple different spots on the city's website. Also went to newspaper. I think it's being printed already. We're coming to the Planning Commission for the public review of that next month. That's the plan. And sort of just thinking a few months ahead, we do intend to bring that back to commission for its review sometime this summer. So look forward to that. Also want to mention a couple of projects that we've had for some time that are somewhat current planning related, but we received an application for Hampton Inn Hotel almost 2 years ago. Really one of the projects that was probably most affected by the pandemic in terms of getting us information and doing some evaluations, project change. So that should be coming to you next month, which is a really great project for the city that ties in really well with our biotech strategy and our goal to have more hotels in the city. And also the Fairmont Plaza, which is a partial shopping center at the corner of Peabody and Marshall. That's getting some updates to the building design and also a standalone drive-through building as well. So just knew about those. So I want to bring those to your attention before we forgot, but that's it from me. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Mr. Pimon or Albert? Nice job, guys. Director Morris, you ready for item 10?
Thank you, Vice Chair Klein. So City Council actions pertaining to Planning Commission items, Pimon touched on those, and Albert did too. Oak Grove was approved on March 22nd. And the council received that annual status report on that same date. And thankfully, we've made it, and that work effort's over. You all were at the special joint meeting with the Planning Commission and Council regarding the housing element on March 29th. That was a great meeting. I think I've heard nothing but positive feedback, and I want to appreciate all of you for being good participants. And then City Council reviews, this is not correct. Those are the past actions. I'm going to go ahead to the future items for the commission. You will be receiving quite a bunch of projects next month, and Pimon touched on them. The Green Tree EIR is a significant document. Part of why Pimon was highlighting for you that you were sent a link to it is if you can't sleep at night, you could start reading it, but ultimately you should read it, and you don't want to read it the week before the meeting. Probably start now. Pace yourselves. And that is something that you'll be having a public hearing on so that the public can understand what an EIR is. You can too, and you can provide your comments verbally on that document at our next meeting. At our next meeting, we'll have Fairmont Plaza, and we'll also have the long-awaited Hampton Inn Hotel project. And I'll be bringing back the business item on the Housing Element Subcommittee. We do have a lot of items coming kind of past May. So as Pimon mentioned, the Green Tree project will be before the Planning Commission for formal consideration sometime this summer. The North Village 2 area plan amendment will be before the Planning Commission this summer, soon. And those are the big ones, but then also keep in mind elements of the housing element, the environmental justice element will be coming toward you this summer. So I actually want to let you know so that we have hopefully balanced agendas. I've asked my planning manager, Pimon, to work with all the planners to really lay out what the rest of the year looks like. And if we need to have a special meeting, we want to be able to let you know about that well in advance. But it will be an action-packed summer, I can tell you that. And then the other update I had falls under the item C of director's report is, as I mentioned earlier, my proposal is we'll put on the agenda at the beginning of next month's meeting, the election of the chair and the vice chair. So essentially Vice Chair Klein will open the meeting, and then we'll see what happens with the elections, and then the chair will pick up the meeting and take it from there. So I'm seeing nodding, so I'm sensing that that's a good sign. And that's my report on city council actions. and other actions.
Well, I know what we're doing this summer, is like to do the movie. So for the EIR, so people who are new to CEQA, the sequence for CEQA is you have an NOP that drops for a project, notice of preparation, and then sometime after that, you have draft environmental impact report, and then you have a final environmental impact report, and then certified at the mayo. That takes 9 months or less. Probably
We'll
never.
talk more about this next month,
Okay.
but many EIRs take minimum of 6 months, sometimes a year or a year and a half to prepare, so it's a pretty lengthy process. You all are coming in to have a public hearing on the draft EIR, which is an optional activity under CEQA. Actually, it's not required, but during the 45-day public review period for this vast document, we have a public hearing at Planning Commission because it gives the public and you a chance to receive a presentation that kind of walks you through the document, and it gives the public a chance to provide any verbal comments they want to provide on the document, and you as well. So in my experience, it's a way of really maximizing public understanding of the EIR and public participation in that process.
Right, and so I just wanted to emphasize that the draft EIR stage is a massive milestone, and this project has been going on a while, but this is a big part of it, so I think, yeah, probably the right time to start digging into that project. Thank you.
Yes.
Were there other comments or questions? I hear Courtney closing his binder.
No, I'm good. I was pulling out my calendar for a future meeting.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner comments, starting with Commissioner Courtney. And we'll just go down the line.
Other than welcome to Vacaville, back to Vacaville. Look forward to working with you.
Commissioner Lightfoot? I've got no. Commissioner Rudin.
I'm just glad to be here, and I look forward to working with everybody, and welcome. That's it.
Commissioner Wilkerson.
Welcome to the two. Looking forward to working with everyone as well and the team, and excited to work on smart growth for Vacaville.
Thank you. And, welcome to Commissioner Rudin and Commissioner Wilkerson, and as well as the new staff. There's a lot of new things happening, and we're glad to be back in person, and let's have a wonderful year. With that, we're adjourned.